Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It is me, Cyber Warrior. This is CyberWarriorStudios, and of course, this is Security Happy Hour. So grab your drink, pull up a chair, and enjoy an amazing show. With me, as always, I have my partner in crime, my friend, the founder of Raices, Eric Bilardo, also known as the Cyber Papa. And joining us today, the one, the only, the awesome, Mr. Awesome, Neal Bridges. So, Neal, it is a pleasure and an honor to have you on the stream today because, me and you linked up like other people have had you on their shows and done these things and said all these great things. And, we've talked in the past, but I wasn't able to message you on LinkedIn because, that stupid premium stuff of, oh, you have to be LinkedIn premium to talk to this guy. Apparently, you're too important for me.
No, I think that's just their secret way of making money off everybody.
Oh, yeah. So, you commented, you're like, yeah, I'd love to be on the show. I was like, all right, cool, message me.
All you have to do is, hey, we're here.
Right? He's like, yeah, I'd love to be on. So I was like, all right, cool. And he never messaged me. So then finally, I had the ability. It's like, oh, you have a free message. Yes, Neal, do you want to be on?
And in all fairness, as soon as you sent it, I was like, yeah, let's make it happen, right?
Yeah. As soon as it went through.
Yeah. It's crazy how my DMs are. Like I've shown my DMs in our Discord and like I've actually done Discord nights where like I'll sit in my Discord with my community. I'll share my screen and I'll just go through and read DM after DM after DM and write advices to people. And I probably get easily 100 to 200 DMs a day. And that's across all my socials. And I make it a personal point to respond to everybody's direct message. Like I have a thing where it doesn't matter what they're asking, what they're talking about or anything. I want everybody to feel special. So I definitively try to respond to everybody's DM every chance I get. It's an awesome feeling. I know what it's like to message somebody wanting advice, wanting to connect with them and not hearing anything back. And I know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of that. And so I just have a personal thing where I'm like, I will not be that person. Yeah. I will not be that person.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things, you, Keytron Evans, Shannon Morris, like all these people that I know that are constantly bombarded either by spam and BS or just by people always asking questions or favors or this, that, and the third. The fact of the matter is you, Shannon, Keytron, and so many others, and I'm talking executives, CISOs, like everybody, I've never had a problem getting a hold of somebody. So like it may take a day or two or three, but they take the time and filter through because you got to people don't understand. They get mad when someone doesn't respond right away. And don't get me wrong, I am part of that immediate gratification era. I'm 35, I'm 35 years old, and that's what we've been surrounded by for years. But I understand because even I get to I'm at the point now where people will message me and I'll either see it late at night while I'm about to go to sleep and forget about it for a day or two, or, I won't even get on or see it for 2 or 3 days because I have so much other stuff to filter through. So I definitely understand. And I think a lot of people forget that. So I really hope that, people kind of get the grasp of you're not going to hear back right away. Like it's just some may, but it's very rare for somebody to hear back the day they send it.
And I want to, just because you mentioned like getting the messages late at night, right? I mean, I do have like a cutoff period. Like I'm one of those people who, so like I have an iPhone, right? And the cool thing that they did, I don't know how many iPhone releases ago, right? But you can set a bedtime alarm on your iPhone, and it silences all notifications. It puts a big old clock on there with your alarm on there, and it's like, yo, you're going to ignore your phone for a while. I started doing that, and I have to say that has been the biggest mental health, benefit that I have had in such a long time, is that when that D&D goes off and I don't no longer have to see those notifications go off, it's actually kind of relieving in that. And so, like, yes, but I also believe in that, like, that balance where it's like you gotta turn that stuff off, and you gotta be not so attached to that. Yeah, absolutely.
Mine is set from 10:30 p.m. to 8:59 every day.
Yep.
And it just automatically does it.
Yep.
I'll be honest. I don't do that. But my phone is never off of vibrate. My phone is on vibrate all day because I don't want to hear it. So, like, if I literally at bed, it'll go on the floor or the dresser somewhere, and I won't touch it.
Yeah.
And it's just how I am. I don't want to have to be responding to things all night, especially because, yes, I keep work email on my phone and things of that nature beyond just what I do for CyberWarriorStudios. I have my full-time job on there.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be involved in any of that.
The mental health aspect is something that I talk a lot about, and I've had a lot of guests on my stream where we talk a ton about mental health, because I used to be the, like, I thought it was cool to only get like 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night. I was like, no, I'm not going to bed till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I thought it was cool to run yourself into the ground like that. And I've shared this story very, very much on my stream before, where I had a minor heart issue right at the onset of COVID, because I was traveling literally from Chicago to Romania to London, back to Chicago to San Francisco for RSA. I was living off of, Adderall and energy drinks, and, working crazy hours, flying all over the place. And it got to me. And I think it was from that point forward where I was like, okay, like, my mental and physical health has got to come first. Otherwise, I'm going to run myself into the ground.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I had a job a couple of years ago where I was traveling to 26 countries, and it was like, I don't know where I'm at. I don't know what time it is. And I had to do that. I had to separate that. And as a blue teamer, I ran a SOC for many, many years, and that was, be there for every shift change as the leader.
Yeah.
I mean, it was working close to 120 hours a week.
Yep.
And, I had to do the same thing. I had to give myself a stop sign and say, that's it. Yep. I even put the lights in the room on the automatic, all my lights, they all start dimming within about half an hour, and they go off. And by the time they start dimming, I know I need to wrap everything up. So give yourself some time to mentally chill before you go to sleep. Get your sleep. Know what your sleep pattern is, because if not, you are going to burn. Cybersecurity is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, and we're conditioned, unfortunately, to think that it's a sprint that you have to do 24 hours a day.
Correct.
And I think the hard part is, right, so all three of us are veterans, right? We all came from the military. And, on active duty especially, they tell you you're a soldier or an airman or whatever 24/7.
Yeah.
But the difference is, and here's where it gets weird, is when I was in the military, I could say I've had a drink, I'm not coming to work.
Yeah.
Right? They call you, and I just call another NCO and be like, hey, you need to take care of this because I can't drive. But here, especially now, like, I love working from home, but even working from home, like, it's one of those things where even if I'm drinking, guess what? If we got work to do, I'm on it. And I told Eric, and me and him had a long conversation early last year where I was done. I was burnt. I was spent. And it's because between my full-time job, on top of streaming and everything else I was doing, and you got to understand, I was doing every day. There was a new topic, a new episode, something new I was doing every day. So there was no time for myself. There was no, like, me time. And so even if you're not doing your full-time job 20 hours a day, when you're doing your full-time job on top of the side projects that a lot of us have, it takes its toll. And if you don't check out and just pull away, you're going to burn out. And I don't think people really want to recognize that, but it happens a lot.
100%. 100%.
So all right, so we talked a little bit about that, but I don't know if everybody knows you, Neal. So let's get a little bit of information. How did you get into cybersecurity? Like, tell me your story.
Oh, I don't think we have enough time in the show for me to tell my usual story. I've been told that I'm a little too long-winded about my story.
Me too.
I think I attribute a lot of my getting into cyber to my late father. And I didn't realize it until after he passed how much I attributed to him. I was a product of the .com boom. I was in the 90s. I was one of the first kids in my high school to write their own webpage. My dad was a computer science teacher. He was part of the ham radio club and the robotics club for North Carolina State University. And he came home with a computer and an HTML book one day, and he was like, "Hey, this is going to be the next coolest thing. You need to figure this thing out." And, I was on bulletin boards when it was dial up, and him being a member of NC State alum, I was on NC State library, cruising the libraries. Cause that's all really you had access to on the bulletin boards back then, was like whatever they decided to put into a library. Yeah. And I was like, this is the coolest thing in the world. I was like, I know there are other libraries out there. I knew Caltech was huge when I was growing up. MIT was huge when I was growing up. And I was like, I asked my dad, I said, how do I get to other universities? And he was like, you need to have like a username and a password to get those other universities. And I was like, what's the username and password? And that just started like the thread in my head where I was like, okay, it's this and it's this. And I was like, how do I get into these other systems? And next thing I know, I'm in Caltech, and then my dad is like pulling me aside, whooping my ass, because I basically did something illegal and I didn't even know it. I had no idea what that was at the time. I knew nothing about it. Fast forward, I went to the .com boom. I was doing, network administration stuff. Security was a bolt-on. It was an add-on. You just kind of did it because you did it. I got tired of getting laid off during the .com boom in the early 2000s. And so I went into the military in 2003 at the ripe age of 24. I was the oldest guy in my basic training at 24. And got fortunate enough through 10 years in the military to make it around to U.S. Cyber Command. Did a stint. Was number one of 225 of actually being one of the first officially coined cyber network warfare operators in the Air Force. Did some work for a lot of 91st, 92nd, 315th. If anybody's familiar with those organizations in the Air Force, a lot of the offensive cyber OCO organizations that exist out there. Since being out in 2013, I thank my lucky stars, the career I've had. I've built and led red teams for companies like Fidelity. I built a 5 million ARR practice for an MSP out of Ann Arbor that did pen testing, red teaming, and MDR. Did the incident transformation and red teaming build out for PwC in the Midwest. Built the security teams for Abbott Laboratories and Mondelez International. Started my own consulting company. Now I'm the chief content officer at INE, and I run the cyber and security community and live stream 3 days a week. So that's probably the shortest I've ever gone through my intro. I've done confidential informant work for the FBI in my since being out of the Air Force. When I was up in Milwaukee, it's just this is stuff that I've eat, sleep, lived, and breathed my entire career.
And that's crazy because you went a different route. And before we get started, I want to say happy birthday to you, Eric, because you're my partner in crime and I love you, buddy. So please, happy birthday to Eric. Throw that in the chat. It's his birthday. Let everybody know.
Thank you.
But I appreciate everything you've done because you kind of went a different route. I went the standard IT route, right? I did I helped fix my first computer with my dad when I was like 7 or 8 years old, maybe even 9. And then I got hit with punters on AOL where people, DOSed you and kicked you off. Yeah. And I didn't get into security until Wi-Fi, right? So even though I had been in IT, I didn't do security until wireless came out and I started dealing with that. That is when I got into security. So understanding that you came through security at its infancy, really, right? When the internet first came around and you were dealing with, IRC was huge and news groups were huge and all these other things. Mind you, I was on the internet back then, I just didn't know about it back then. Like I wasn't part of anything that knew about those.
I'll tell you a story of my first when I first got into web hacking, because like I had been like I designed web pages, I had learned HTML, I was I felt really strong on the networking side of things because I'd come up in the Air Force doing a lot of NetSwitch and stuff like that. I play World of Warcraft, still played World of Warcraft. This is right when World of Warcraft first came out. I was a part of a guild, and I was the token nerd in the group who built if you can imagine me saying I was a token nerd of a World of Warcraft guild, building web pages for it. I was using PHP Nuke. I was the only one who knew how to like stand up a server in a VPS and basically do like a LAMP server back in the day and basically do PHP Nuke. And so I stood up the guild's web page with forums on PHP, and I got hit by one of the first Syrian Electronic Army mass exploitation of like PHP Nuke vulnerabilities, and I had one of those moments where I was like, whoa, this is cool. I hate that I just got hit by this, but I want to learn how to do this type of stuff. And that was when I came up, that was how you learned that there was all this other stuff that was going on out there. Was you usually got hit by it, whether it was Melissa, the I love you virus, or getting like,
oh man, I love you.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
ooh,
I mean,
memories.
Yeah. Like I remember I love you. And I was like, oh my God, you can embed JavaScript inside of Outlook messages. Not only did I not care about a Melissa virus, I thought it was cool as hell, but the amount of things that I started to do from there with JavaScript inside of Outlook messages was off the chain. I was like, let me just show you some cool shit that we could do here. And so like that for me has always been the joy of this career field. And I'll give you one example and I'll stop talking. I get a lot of hate now because I am embracing crypto and NFTs. And there is because everybody views them as a Ponzi scheme. Everybody views them for people selling 8-bit graphics for like $8 million, and they're like, oh, this is such a terrible thing. And I've already highlighted to several people how they're being used for malicious activities, how you're embedding JavaScript, how there was an SVG that was used to steal money out of wallet. And I'm like, you all didn't come up in an area like where we did, where it was like, we were at the cusp of Web 2.0, at Web 1.0. We were at the cusp of like not seeing an exploit until it hit the wild with things like Melissa or I Love You or mass exploitation of PHP Nuke by Syrian Electronic Army. And so like when you see new technology, like my mind instantly gravitates towards it. And it's like, I want to know this inside and out, because this is either going to be huge, it's going to be used in the next exploit, it's going to be used in the next attack vector, and that's been a culture and a mentality that I've tried to impart upon people, is that embracing of that curiosity, regardless of how dumb you think it is, it's probably going to be used by an attacker, and you need to be smart on it.
Yeah,
And you mentioned something that I didn't think about, was the abuse of NFTs in an exploit vector. And crypto has always been that. The reason why people are so hell bent against crypto is because it kind of spawned a lot of nefarious people to use that as a payment currency. But NFTs, look, I'll be honest, people have explained NFTs to me and I understand it, but at the same time I'm like, look, right click save, I have that image, it doesn't matter to me.
It's not about the image.
I get that. It's the licensure to the image.
No, it's not even licensed. No. There's an entire utility system behind NFTs. Let me give you an example of what we're doing on cyber and security with NFTs. We're creating baseball cards of our guests on NFTs, and you can put unlockable content in that NFT. And so like Wednesday, we had Joel Fulton, who's the former CISO of Splunk, former CSO at Symantec and Google, on the stream. He volunteered to give 2 hours of his time for mentoring to a winner of his NFT every quarter. But the only way that you can do that is by actually holding the NFT and giving out a code that is in the unlockable content of the NFT. The amount of tokenizing and utility that you can put into NFTs, it's huge. It's massive.
See, I didn't even think about that concept of it. I was thinking more of because it's an image, right? That's a lot of it. It's some type of image that they're giving away. I wasn't thinking about the unlockable content that you can get along with it. Yeah. Which is what a lot of people don't realize, is that there's more that you can do. To me, it was the back end, the owner of said graphic or whatever is in the blockchain, but this graphic can be copied and pasted and
But this
wherever.
is what I think is what's wrong, and I use wrong loosely with today's modern social culture, is the first thing that gets latched into our head is whatever cynical thing we see on the internet.
Correct.
Right. And so we if you lose that creative intellect, as part of the cybersecurity culture, and you just instantly latch on to whatever social dystopia exists out there, then you stop that creative process. And instead of being like, okay, what actually can I do here with this? What is the tech behind this? How does this actually work? What can be abused about this? And that's what I try to encourage people to do, is to look beyond the social facade of what happens in technology these days.
And like Josh says right here, it could be anything. It could be a video, a song, anything in there that can be embedded into that smart contract. And that's what the power of the NFT market is. Yes, right now the popularity is with pictures and different things, and as a collector's item and things of that nature. But the power of the technology could be exploited into multiple positive ways. And we had just the last couple of weeks, we had 2 or 3 videos that I put on my channel on the exploits that have happened. The things that the different attack groups have done to the and it's usually at the level of the the Coinbases and the crypto.coms and things of that nature. But the protocol, the functionality of NFT and blockchain have endless possibilities, especially in security here.
There's a couple of white papers out there that talk about the use of blockchain and the use of NFTs specifically in identity and access management. And that's something I've tried to research for years. There's not really a lot of terribly good use cases, but people are trying to find ways to do some unique stuff on the security side. I would actually, prior to maybe Q3 of last year, my thing to tell people is you need to be cloud smart. And I still think that everybody needs to be cloud smart. Yeah. I've changed that in 22. And now I'm telling people in 22, like, yeah, you need to be cloud smart, but you need to be starting to look at blockchain as a technology. Because I think that if you want to be on the cutting edge, if you want to be on the bleeding edge of learning something, I think you need to be learning blockchain right now.
Oh, for sure. And I think, I'd really be curious, because I'd love to see, because I understand the concept behind blockchain and I understand what it's trying to do, especially with crypto and things of that nature. More so crypto than NFTs, but I get the whole concept behind it. And I would love to see IAM, your identity and access management, become a part of that, because it is, if we can arrange it in such a way that it is not, where it's not easily abused, then it would be an amazing, security feature to be able to enable that, because that blockchain does so much, and it helps to identify and alleviate a lot of issues that we are having right now with IAM.
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to see development happen in that. I think, like to Eric's point, we're starting to see. I think I just posted something on Twitter. Vice released an article regarding some research that they had done with malicious code basically being embedded in NFTs. Checkpoint Security had done a responsible disclosure with OpenSea back in October, where they were doing where they had discovered that was more of a vulnerability in OpenSea's platform than it was in the actual NFT, but it was still in relation to how they do NFTs. And so I think we're really, really on the cusp of seeing the good and the bad cybersecurity implications of blockchain and NFTs. So I'm super excited. I'm super excited for how that innovation goes.
Oh yeah, and you got to look at everything, every technological innovation there has ever been in the history of humankind. Has come with good and bad. Everything, right? You can go back to the nuclear fusion and everything that was supposed to come from energy. Now you got the A-bombs and things like that. Computers were supposed to make life easier. Then we got viruses and malware and data exfiltration. So everything with good is going to come with bad. There's going to be malicious people out there. So it's about the security professionals to find those ways where, as they're creating something or as they're looking into something, they can see those exploits and the ways it can be taken advantage of, And I think that's what we need to get ahead of when we're looking at designing this technology. And a lot of these technologies, okay, we know it can be abused in this way. So how do we can't prevent it. This is a valid technology. There's very limited ways to prevent some of these abuses. So how do we detect it? How do we put the features and the things in place to help minimize and mitigate those threats?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just remember that, for every new technology that comes out, the first thing that developers look at is functionality. They want to make it work.
Yep.
Security is an afterthought
Oh, yeah.
always. Always, always, always. It's how do we make this happen? And that is what happens with all these new technologies. You get the good, you see how it gets exploited, then people go, wait, we gotta secure this. And then you have the 2.0 versions where that's when security gets introduced.
Look at most of
So
your networks. They're the same way. We're still trying to fix what was broken with hospitals and everything, every other critical infrastructure and everything else. They were designed for functionality, for machines to talk. Look at ARPANET and DARPANET. It was designed for machines and networks to talk, and security was never thought of. It was never thought this could be abused.
well, let me give you a bad word. OT, SCADA, ICS. Okay, so when you design these PLCs, they're designed for spin it this way, spin it that way, open it or close it.
Yep.
In general, right? So that's what they were designed, and they were designed like that for years. So now that they're being attacked, now the new generation is being designed with a little more security in mind. Except every single time that I go into a power company or something like that, the keys are still in the program thing, and it's like, but
hey, it takes three people to do this. Two of those keys are already there and turned. You just need the one more.
The point is that all of these things are designed for functionality, and at the end, then that's when they start putting security.
Yeah.
So, with all this technology, everything, we need to just understand that when technology gets built, it's all for functionality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Neal, Mr. Awesome, the one and only, I got to ask, what is some of the fixes? What are some of the things we can do in the future, in your travels, in your adventures in security, because you've had so many, what are some of the things you think we can do to make security more of a priority in development, right? When we do certain things, like Eric said, it's all about functionality. Security comes on the back end. Do you think we're making strides in the right direction to make security more in the forefront?
Stop.
No. And I'll tell you, no. When I came out of the Air Force in 2013, I came out with that like fire in my belly where I was like, I'm going to solve the challenges of security of the world, right? I just came from 10 years in the military. I am the smartest person in the whole planet, and I'm going to fix all the security issues at the first company I worked at. And I can tell you that from 2013 to now, so almost 8 years later, the answer is no, unequivocally no. And it's because we as cyber people fail the most common test, and that is interacting with humans at a level that they can understand. We fail to talk to people. We fail to talk to the business. The CFO doesn't understand us. The CEO doesn't understand us. The EVPs of supply chain don't understand us, right? And until we come to grips that nobody wants to talk about the threat, nobody wants to talk about your exploit, nobody wants to talk about how many vulnerabilities you got on the network.
That's right.
Until you're ready to talk about money and risk in a language that they understand, no. We are so far away from ever having that conversation.
That's one of the things that I tell all the people, that when we train security people, when we train this new next generation, is we've got to add the human skills element. Because when you go as a leader, like you were just saying, Neal, when you go as a leader to that board or that CEO or that EVP and you say, well, there's CVE number 2235. No, it's how does this impact me? How does this work, within my system? And one of the things is I want to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Brian Losada, who's the CISO of HBO Max.
Yeah.
And the way he's running HBO Max is that security needs to be transparent to the user and to the company. So put all the security, but make sure that it doesn't impact as much as possible the functionality of the product. And that is so important to make sure that people will do the security, will take care to input their passwords and change their passwords. If it's transparent to them or easy for them, they're going to do it.
It's not just that. Let me tell a small story, if I can. A CISO I worked for a number of years ago. IT in general, and especially cybersecurity, has traditionally always been the office of no. We all know it.
Yep.
We all have lived it, whether it's help desk or anything else. We've been the office of no. And I had a CISO. We were having a conversation one time, and he was like, Neal, and it was the CISO, it was the director of security architecture, and it was me who was running security operations. And he said, Neal and Doug, the other guy, he said, I want to go to the south side of Chicago. What do you tell me? And Doug and I just kind of looked at each other. We're like, we tell you no. Like, that's a terrible idea. And he says, that's the problem with security. He says, I want to do something risky because as a business, I need to do something risky to make money. And I came to my security guys and you said no. He said security's job is to enable the business to take risk.
Yes.
And what has to happen is when the business comes to us and says, I want to go to business in China, I want to go to business in Russia, I want to go business, insert country X, I want to go to the most dangerous places in the world, and I want to run my business, security has to be on the front lines to say, I got you. I will make sure that you can do that in the safest and best way possible, and we will make that happen for you.
Go from being a police to being a bodyguard.
Exactly. And so, like, you have to enable the business to take risk. And that has stuck with me for decades in terms of just how to be thinking about your cybersecurity journey.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love that, because you said something that we have said many times on this show, and I've stated it many times in different posts on LinkedIn and things like that. You have to be a business enabler, right? So that is the fear. This is where you get rogue IT from. You get rogue IT from being the no people in the organization. No one's going to come to you and ask for your advice or your help or your assistance or anything like that if they know you're going to say no.
Yeah.
So it comes down to business enablement. And that is where security comes in. We give them ways to mitigate. We give them ways to put in place what they need to succeed and to make money. And yes, there are going to be times where something is just absolutely ridiculous and you're going to have to say no. Like, there's no way to mitigate that. You're leaving yourself open to like millions and millions and millions of dollars of lost revenue. It's going to happen eventually.
I want to disagree with you on that when you get to the end of that statement. I want to disagree with you on that.
That's fine. And I love that. You know, that's what it's about. But I think there are going to be those times where people ask for things that are just purely like they're not willing to bend and do things that are going to allow you to secure them to enable it. Like, you can still do this, but you got to put these features in place first.
I disagree with you.
You think?
I do, because here's why. When you say that, you're saying that the security organization owns the risk posture of the business.
Okay, I can see where you come from on that, because correct, it should be whoever owns, it should be the CEO, CISO, whatever, that owns that risk. But I think giving that feedback of, we don't agree with this,
Oh yeah,
If the CISO wants to go through with it, I get where you're coming from on
yeah.
that. The security should never own the risk.
Yeah. That's the thing is like we get too often in this where we think that the CISO organization is the one who has to make the ultimate risk determination, and we are not risk determiners in the CISO organization at any level whatsoever, right? We are here to prevent, detect, and respond. We are here to identify risk. We're here to attempt to put governance structures in place to mitigate and limit risk, and we're to communicate risk to the other parts of the organization. It is up to the CEO. He has the ultimate risk acceptance responsibility
Correct.
in every organization. And so if the business wants to say, I want this web server on the internet with no firewall, I don't want it to go through a code review, I know it's had a vulnerability scan and it's vulnerable to 19 different ways of cross-site scripting and SQL injection, we're going to whip out that nice big vulnerability report with a piece of paper and says, all right, CEO, you want to sign off on this risk? You run the potential of a GDPR fine of 15% of your revenue, getting hacked and losing $10 billion of money. You sign right here that you're accepting that risk and have fun. We're good all day long. That's our job. And that's the difference.
Right. And I agree with that. And okay, so maybe my statement was a little bit off, but I think it's the same premise of it's there to enable the business. And we're not necessarily saying no. You're right. We're not the ones that's going to say no. We're going to give the recommendation to the executives to say, hey, you either agree or disagree with this. This is our assessment. This is how we feel. And it can be either mitigated in these ways or non-mitigated. There's no way around what they want to do. It's on you to accept the risk because you don't want. We see too often the CISOs, the security people, the interns, the whatever, be the fall guy. In order to not be that fall guy, you got to have your ducks in a row and have the paperwork. And if you're the fall guy, you can sit there and come up to the next organization you work for and be like, look, I gave my recommendation. They told me no.
Yeah. But far too much our organizations, I guess because of the learning of the people or the people running it, believe that they're called the internet cops of that company. And I will be the first one to admit for a long time in my career, I felt that way, that, that ownership of the risk and the risk tolerance and no, you can't do this. And it wasn't until later on in my career, I've been doing this for 32 years and, I learned late in my career, maybe 10, 15 years, that is the ultimate thing, is just be able to quantify the risk in a way that CEO, CTO, CIO understands it, which is not necessarily a technical thing. So when we tell people about writing, vulnerability reports or pentest reports or
GRC,
all that GRC stuff, but the reality is that GRC feeds the C-suite.
Yep. Whether you like it or not, GRC is closer to understanding the business than we will ever be on security operations.
Correct.
I love GRC. I love the people that work in GRC. They make my job easy because they make it easy for me to sit there and say, hey, this risk needs remediated for this policy, this procedure, this regulation, whatever the case may be. GRC is my lifeblood because without them, a lot of organizations would not implement security measures. They'd be like, you know what? I got this. We're good. But with GRC implementing the risk registers and informing them of ISO 27001 and doing all these other things, that is where GRC is huge because now they could say, hey, you want to abide by this? You have to have this. If you don't have this, you're not abiding by, HIPAA or high trust or something like that.
But you know what I always tell these people? You know that I say it every single show. Compliance does not equal security.
That's right.
Okay,
it does not.
And
PCI is
a lot of
key point for
time.
that.
And a lot of time, people will say, "But I have a SOC 2, but I have HIPAA, or I have insert regulation here or compliance regulation here." That does not equal security because it's not. It's a compliance that you have it, not the strength of it.
Yeah.
So.
But it's a step in the right direction. And I think that is one of the things that even I myself get away from. right? When I look at these audits, and Neil, you may have a different opinion, but when I look at these audits, and like the worst audit ever is like, did you have a pen test this year? Yeah, I paid $2,000 for somebody to check a box for me. Like those are the worst for me. But generally speaking, when it comes to like blue team stuff and your firewalls and your actual security measures that you have in place to detect and notify and defend against this stuff, I find that those regulations help with that, but they don't help to plug the holes of the exploits.
I don't. Well, I love to obviously play devil's advocate on things, and so
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a counterpoint to this one, right? Fundamentally speaking, and I'll use GDPR as an example of this, right? Fundamentally
Okay.
speaking, compliance could drive security.
Hmm.
The problem that we have is we've got some really, really smart people sitting in executive leadership positions that are really, really good negotiators. And I say this having been on the receiving and the delivery end of this, where you get that report and maybe it's a maturity report, and they're like, well, we don't really feel like you're a 3. We think you're a 2 in your vulnerability management program because you didn't achieve automation. And you're like, well, technically I did because I did X, Y, and Z. And so by your definition of automation, I actually did. So actually I am a 3 on my maturity index and not a 2. And you go back and forth with a big 4. And then next thing you know, you've got a 3 instead of a 2. And I think it's we've brought that corporate negotiation skill set into the assessment of compliance requirements that has driven the quality and effectiveness of those compliance requirements down. I think if we were to, so I was a QSA, and I vowed when I vowed before I was a QSA that I'd never be a QSA, and then I had somebody send me to be a QSA, and I was very very upfront and honest with the company that sent me. I said, I want you to understand something. If I ever go and do an assessment of somebody for PCI, you're never going to get asked to do that assessment again. And they're like, why? And I said, because I am going to enforce that requirement, that compliance requirement to a T. Case in point, this was before. So I worked a little bit with the PCI organization to help them drive one of the changes to the DSS regarding pen testing back in 2014, 2015. The old requirement was written as, did you have a pen test against systems that affect the ability to process, store, transmit credit card data? When I went to go do my assessments, they would give me the server that held the credit card data. And it would be literally on the exact same domain as, in this case, it was the computers in a call center. And I said, I'm going to pen test these computers over here in this call center. And they're like, you can't, they're not in scope. But I said, no. You don't get to tell me what's in scope. My fancy dancy QSA spreadsheet right here says that I can pen test any machine that potentially could affect the ability for this machine to store, process, transmit credit card data out here on the network. And I see all of these machines out here that could affect that ability. So I sat my laptop down there, I plugged in the network, fired up responder, grabbed some credentials right off the phone, compromised the domain controller, got to access their PCI data. Their entire network was in scope for me at that point in time. It is because we don't have enough people who can truly enforce compliance at that level, that we've allowed compliance to get watered down to where we're cynical that compliance does not equal security. And I'm not saying that I think that compliance equals security. We've just failed ourselves. We've gotten in our own way of that being successful.
Well, and I'm gonna tie on to that. I worked for an organization where, up until I got there, where they had changed auditors, the CEO and all the executive leadership was friends with the auditor. So they had the same auditor come out time after time after time for PCI, which means guess what? They passed time
Yeah.
after time
Yeah.
after time after time. And I'll be the first one to stand up and say they had servers and everything else that were not compliant, that were behind probably 6 months to a year in patches. So to see that and to know that, I'm like, this is BS. You should not be passing these audits. You don't have a valid patch management, vulnerability management. These programs aren't intact for you to be able to pass these, but they passed every time.
But that's the
And
human component of why that process fails. And that's why I say, like, I'm just as cynical as everybody else when I say compliance doesn't equal security. But I think the people have failed us in that. We failed ourselves. Looks like Eric wants to jump in with something.
you're on mute, Eric. I can't hear you.
Just really quick. I was drinking, so I had to mute it. Okay, so very quickly, I'm going to give it you a network security control that I found. I was doing a very, very big assessment of a maritime transportation company. I'll just leave it at that. And they were so proud about all these new Palo Alto firewalls that they have installed and segregated the network. And they said, that means that we have our firewalls, we're segregated. That's a network security control. And I just opened the firewall, just the interface on the firewall. Any.
Yeah.
Okay, so all the
Worst role ever.
yeah, everything was open, but they had just bought,
Yeah.
the biggest Palo Altos, segregated everything, every single deck. Oops, had a different, firewall between them, and they were all any. So then that case, that was a yes, I have a firewall. No, the firewall is not configured. Yes, you are technically have the security control in place, but the efficiency of that security control is a question.
Yeah, and that's where I think not all compliance frameworks are created equal, because if we go back to the DSS, there's and again, it's been a hot minute since I've looked at the DSS. There is, do you have firewall? But then later on, there's, does the firewall prevent data transmission across the zones? Does the firewall do this? Does the firewall do that? And so that's an example where DSS has matured pretty significantly.
Mhm.
But I think you're talking about something like HIPAA, which is truly just do you have a firewall, which is completely useless.
And even 800.171,
Okay,
when you look at something
God.
that, and now with the 4 bad words that are coming out with the CMMC, all of this stuff that's why I look at compliance and I say, please ensure that you test for, compliance can drive security very, very well.
Yeah.
But it has to be the person, the human skills, as we talked, to bring that to bear.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Well,
That's why. Go ahead.
Go ahead,
No,
Neal.
go ahead. No,
I was
go
gonna
ahead.
say that is where I think the consulting companies, those organizations that reach out to others that want to be secure, that are like, you know what, I have a small team, I don't know shit. Can you please help me? I think those organizations are very much more willing to talk to GRC and want to be secure. The ones that don't know shit and are like, I got a small team, I got this. I'm gonna pass whatever audit you bring because I'm just gonna use my people skills to talk the auditor into passing me. That's where I have an issue. But the ones that reach out and are like pass or fail based on, I legitimately am doing everything that I possibly can to not only enable the business, but secure the business at the same time. Those are the ones that I love working with. I got to be honest.
See, I guess I've had a flip experience, right? I actually think it's the small teams that welcome the auditors, because what they're hoping for is they're hoping they fail miserably so they can go to their boss and say, I need money because I failed miserably.
Yeah.
I won't name the company, but there was a Fortune 100 that I was working for. I was running their security team. We had passed with flying colors on the security operations side when we got it maturity audited by a Big Four. One of my peers was not so lucky. They were doing pretty horribly, and it was an area where there was a lot of investment in. And we were literally in the room with the CISO and all of his direct reports, and this individual had gotten basically a 2 on their maturity score, while the rest of us were sitting around 3 3s and 3 5s. And hearing them argue/negotiate with the Big Four in that group to basically pressure the Big Four into changing that maturity score, I see that as a common practice, both when I was at PwC, both when I've been on the Fortune 100 side. That's a much more common practice in those big organizations. Like I said, most small organizations I go to, they're like, please tell me everything that's wrong so I can at least go ask for some money to try to fix something.
Yeah, for sure. And I understand that point. It is some of your smaller security, teams that will utilize that audit, like fail that audit for those purposes. And I think even to this day, as a consultant, you will see security teams that want to fail a pen test, that want someone to breach their entire network so they can say, hey, I need people.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the maturity. That's the maturity. That's a lot of the maturity of the individuals in that organization, because they understand that that test is going to help, be it a compliance maturity or a pen test or a vulnerability assessment. That test is going to give them a real view of what they need to improve.
Yeah.
But I
And
think that comes down to the company, though. And that's where the real
that's the
nitty-gritty comes
maturity of
down
the
to.
team, not the company.
I
The
agree
No,
with
no.
Eric on this.
Yeah.
I agree with Eric on
I
this one.
do say maturity of the team, but I say it comes down to the company, because there are pen test organizations out there that will pay, that will accept bottom dollar for a vuln assessment and say, here you go, here's your pen test. These are what you're vulnerable to.
Yeah, but that's
It's unfortunate, but it does happen. And I think that's an issue where us as security professionals do that type of shit. You know what I mean? Like, they do that type of, I'll accept anything and I'll do the job and here you go. And I think that's on us, not on the company that paid for it. That's on us as security professionals that have been like, oh, here's a pen test and you pay $2,000. Okay. We did it for you in a week, and you probably should have had 3 weeks for the
well,
number of assets you
that's
had.
that goes back to the point that we made is compliance. That's the key. Compliance does not equal security.
Yes.
So in that respect, when you have companies that are doing that, they're just checking the block. Yes, I
Yes.
did it.
Yeah.
Okay. When you have a responsible auditor and sees that report, they're going to say this is not an acceptable pen test. You know,
Yes.
this is not, and depends on the actual, like Neal said, if you show that to a QSA, they're going to say, this is a vulnerability assessment. This is not a pen test. This
Yes.
does not pass.
Yes. And that's the way it should be. But we know, unfortunately, due to the human element, there are failures on both sides. There's failures in security as consultants and pen testers and everything else like that, and failures in business. And it's very unfortunate to see. I would rather see more failures in business, just because I work in the cybersecurity field. I would love for us as cybersecurity professionals to stand up and say, no, that's not going to fly. But we know that doesn't happen because money makes the world go round.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like you're never going to get away from that. Like you know, I think to believe that the industry that we love will move to a model where you say, I utterly refuse to give you a vulnerability scan as a pen test and take $2,000 for that, for almost no work. I think you are deceiving yourself if you think the industry will ever self-correct that problem.
No, I
never
don't think it will. I wish it would. It's more of a dream than a thought that will actually ever happen.
Yeah. I mean, as long as it's the drug problem, right? As long as there's buyers, there's going to be sellers.
Yes, exactly. And that's the sad part is, as much as I love our industry, I love what we do. And I like to think that the people that I deal with on a daily basis, whether in social networking or in real life, through work and this, that, and the third, have that mindset of, we actually have security in mind. We're going to tell you no. If you are not set up for a red team engagement, we're not going to give you a red team engagement. If you're not set up for whatever, we're not going to give you that. We're going to tell you what you need, and we're going to charge you for that. I'd love to say that's where everybody's at, but everybody knows that's not the case.
All right. Well, in honor of my birthday, and as we're coming to the top of the hour,
holy shit,
Mr. Awesome, Mr. Neal, there, are you familiar with this book right here?
I am indeed. As a matter of fact, I've had Philip on my stream, and we've talked about his book, and I recommended it a year ago when I was on David Bomble's stream.
Okay, well, guess what? Phil gave me copies of the audiobook for the Pentester's Blueprint. So what we're going to do right now is a reverse birthday. I'm going to give you guys a present. So
didn't we do that on my birthday? Everybody gave people shit for my birthday too.
I know.
We're doing
what
that.
I want is, if you want to be entered to win the Pentester's Blueprint on audiobook, please enter in the chat, Mr. Awesome. Okay.
And it is case sensitive, so make sure you put it in capital M, capital A, and have the hashtag before. You got to do it, and you'll get the pen tester's blueprint.
Yeah,
And it's
type in Mr. Awesome.
honestly an amazing book.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about that, so I see the INE and Splunk banners in the background. I've got to ask, man, like, how's that working for you? Because I'm not a huge Splunk fan.
So this is more than just so these are more sentimental. Both of these Splunk things.
You're like me.
So the first security team I built was for Abbott. Came in, the CISO was like, I don't have an IR team, I don't have a security operations team. We need to build something from scratch. And so over the course of 3 years, I took it literally from 3 people. This was there was Fortune. They were Fortune 117 at the time that I was working there. They were $80 billion in revenue, 185,000 people across the globe in 186 countries. It was a massive organization, probably one of the biggest organizations that ever tried to build a security organization that would actually, protect an organization that big. And on top of that, if you don't know, like Abbott does Similac, which is the baby formula that almost everybody's familiar with. They do pacemakers, through their St. Jude acquisition. They were doing the Freestyle Libres for the for diabetes. So I mean, they were literally saving people's lives. And so now I'm responsible for building the identification, detection, and prevention for an organization this huge, right? And so we literally built an entire team up from scratch. We used Splunk. We implemented it, and we sent the team, after about 2 years of hands-on Splunk experience, to their first ever Boss of the SOC, which, if you've never been to a Boss of the SOC, it's one of the very, very, very few blue team capture the flag type events that are out there. As a matter of fact, during the first year of COVID, I streamed Boss of the SOC during our first year streaming, and it was so much fun, and it was amazing to stream, and it was a huge success to stream. The year before was when my guys at Abbott competed at Boss of the SOC in person, and they got third. First Boss of the SOC ever. First time most of these guys had ever participated in something that huge, and they were going against some big organizations, including a couple of government organizations, and they placed third. And so I literally went into the Splunk area where they were competing, and I stole the flag and I stole the poster. And literally, like, I was running out of the hotel with like a poster on my back and carrying the flag. And so these are very, very sentimental. And I shout out to my Abbott guys if they're watching. A lot of them are over in the cybersecurity community. A lot of them are still working at Abbott today. I've always been super proud of the achievements that they've made, and the fact that they were able to crush it so hard during their first Boss of the SOC. And so, I was a hardcore old school Splunker. And so these are more sentimental than they are anything else. Splunk is not the company that I loved when I first did my first Splunk implementation. It's a different company now.
Oh, it is. Yeah. It definitely is. And I think everything has changed through the years. There are different SIMs, different EDRs, everything's changed over the years. Yeah. So, I like what people are trying to do. I do. I love the fact that there are organizations out there trying to improve security and their capabilities in security. Splunk being one of them. Let's be honest. They are doing tremendous things to try to improve the industry. Another one being Talos and Cisco. Look, I'm not a fan of Cisco buying Talos, but Talos as it stands and the things that they're doing for research and finding the malware and finding everything are truly amazing. Look, if you don't have Pentest Blueprint, please hashtag Mr. Awesome in the chat. Write meow. Write meow. And if you don't get that reference, go watch Super Troopers. You'll get it. But write meow. Enter hashtag Mr. Awesome so that we can do this drawing.
We are going to give it another
45 seconds. I'll give them till 1959. Right. You got 45 seconds to enter it. So, but I do, Neal. I love everything that you're doing. But from that standpoint, we're going to take this back and we're going to talk more about what you do on the side. You are a content creator.
Yeah.
You do a lot for the community in everything you do as IT junkie and as what you do on YouTube and things of that nature. So what really spawned that
Dude,
that passion to do that.
I just heard IT donkey, and
I
I was
said junkie.
processing that for a
What the
second,
hell
going,
you get
"Oh,
donkey for
IT
that?
junkie. Oh, okay, IT junkie,
God.
dude."
You're old. Hey, get a hearing aid. You're old.
Get
I
a hearing
need.
aid.
I was like, "What?" Okay, you got to use that in the next stream, Neal.
Yeah, for sure. What, the hearing aid or the IT donkey?
IT donkey, man. You see, I can even get you a IT donkey. I carry the load. All right, there you go.
I carry the load. I like that. I carry the load.
Come on.
So I used to speak at a ton of conferences before COVID. I've keynoted for VMware, Carbon Black,
Lucky.
Proofpoint, lots of organizations out there. When COVID hit, the first 6 months, I was like, it'll be fine. This will be over before long. I think it was probably about 6 months in that I was like, all right, this stuff's here to stay. And I was like, man, I miss talking to people. I miss the community. It was evident that Black Hat and DEF CON weren't going to be in person that year. And so I was like, well, what about if we start streaming? And so my wife, who is my producer, we sat down and we made a business plan. So we have our own consulting company that we have on the, that we do also as well on the side. And so we had clients, and so we sat down and we made a business plan. We were like, okay, let's start streaming. And so we went out and hired videographers. We went out and hired graphics artist people. We went out and researched what TV grade production studios look like, cameras, the whole works, right? We redesigned an entire room in the house to make the studio, and we started streaming. And I basically, having spent, numerous times getting wined and dined, as we talked about, from vendors and whatnot out there, I basically flipped the script on them, and I was like, hey, I spent years helping you. Now you're going to spend some time helping me, and you're going to come on my stream. And so my first probably 3 months worth of guests were me calling in favors to people that I had helped the years before, and basically being like, you're going to come and sit with me, and you're going to talk with me for 2 hours, and we're going to talk about cybersecurity. And I loved it. I found that talking to the community in that way was so much more rewarding than any conference I had ever done in the previous years. And then I got super fortunate. Like, as I talk about luck and I talk about opportunities, and I make no qualms that I got super lucky to get introduced to David. I had David Bombal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, at the time that I got introduced to him, he had like 600 subs on YouTube. He was up there with Network Chuck, or he's still up there with Network Chuck, just in terms of like the volume and quantity of content that he puts out there. In our space, like, being around somebody like him is the next best thing to getting, like, that big shot at getting your name out there. And I actually, there's a good explanation of this on the latest video that David and I did on his channel, where I talk about this, where, somebody had said, hey, would you like to meet David Bombal? And I was like, who the hell is David Bombal? And I met him, and we had instant chemistry. The next day he was like, do you want to come talk cybersecurity on my YouTube channel? And as if I needed like 5 seconds to think about that, I was like, duh, yes, I would love to. And that propelled cyber insecurity into the spotlight. And I'm eternally grateful to him for that. Great powers come great responsibility. I've realized what it's like to be on the receiving end of a lot of social hate and things like that. And, it is what it is. And I've had to grow a little bit thicker skin than even when I was in the military because of that. But, it's been a wild ride. I love my community to death. We've got a guy right now. So we've built the community in such a way that there's a brand, cyber insecurity, but we try to find streamers to stream with us. So it's not just the Neal show, right? So like on Tuesday, we've got Brent Eskridge, who does like a Python study group. Jack Reedy is streaming right now, Sec IT guy. He's doing some blue team reverse engineering. Like, I just saw the notification come across my stream, or across my screen, that he just went live on cyber insecurity. We've got another guy that streams on Wednesday night as well, where he talks about his life as an incident responder for an MSP. And so it's really turned into this community effort to bring not just my personality, not just my perspectives on cybersecurity, but everybody's from across the industry that wants to come, as an outlet for them to see the different angles of cybersecurity and learn stuff.
And see, I love that. And and it's funny you say that. And before we get into what I got to say, I'm going to go off air and I'm going to let Eric do his drawing. So I'll be right back.
Gotcha.
All right, folks, so let's do this real quick. So good luck to everybody, and here we go. All right. Mr. Genghis, yay! Woo!
Yay.
All right, Mr. Genghis, so please reach out to either Cyber Warrior on Twitter or myself, ebelardo73 in Twitter. So reach out to us for that, and I'll get you the code for the book.
I just saw in chat, if I can really quick, Mr. Genghis says, I discovered David from watching Neal with a laughy face.
Yeah.
I want you to, can you please put that on Twitter and at David on that? Because I want to use that against him the next time him and I do a recording. I'd be like, look, you're getting discovered from me, baby.
Okay. So
and it's funny though. I love it.
Okay, hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on for a second. Okay.
I don't even know David. So he is getting discovered from you.
Okay, I want
that.
everybody to look at the camera and smile real quick. All right, got it. It's going on Twitter.
Yeah.
Sweet. So yeah, no, I love the reason you did it, because your reasons are a lot of the same as mine, and we're over time. I don't care. It's my show. Fuck it. Look, I'm on LinkedIn too, which is a professional network, and I still don't give a damn. So here's the thing, and here's what it comes down to, though, is I started this show for the same reasons you started yours. I wanted to interact with the community. I wanted to find a way to get people's voices heard. And yes, I have had some huge names, you, Alyssa Miller, Shannon Morris, and things like that on here. But I've also had some people that have never been heard of. The first show David Fraley, Makeshift on Twitter, ever did was right here. And he blew up after he was on this show because he found his confidence. And that's what it comes down to for me, is giving people their voice and the ability to be heard. And so I really appreciate everything you're doing, because it's giving others that opportunity that they may not see that they have.
Yeah.
And to me, that means a lot to me, because it really comes down to the opportunity. And if you're not willing to take it upon yourself and somebody gives you that opportunity, then it's amazing. And so I like to see this show as something where, whether you're in school or you're in your first year or your 50th year of your career, you can come on and get your voice heard. Maybe you've never talked at DEF CON or Black Hat or, B-Sides, Vegas, or anything like that. But you still have an opinion. You still have something to give back to the community. You have still learned something. There's something that you have to give back. And I think that is the great thing about what you're doing and what we're doing here and what Eric does on his show. And it's one of those things where people that have never been heard of, I got to be honest, I didn't know who the CISO of HBO Max was. I didn't know what his thoughts were on a lot of topics. But getting Eric, being on Eric's show and being his co-host, I was able to hear that. And that's one of those things that I think we tend to forget about, is that other people have a voice.
Yeah.
They have something to say. We concentrate so much on those huge names, the ones that talk at Black Hat and DEF CON and, RSA and all these other, areas. We neglect the fact that those that are in the field and doing the job probably have a different say, or may have something to say that will benefit the community.
So I did a stream this morning. So every Friday morning I do my Tea with a Hacker stream, and it's a giant AMA stream. Like I invite everybody to come in, and I literally sit down and I just answer questions for literally as long as I can until I get a Slack message or something from my boss that's like, hey, need you to do some actual work instead of hanging out with your community. But somebody came on my stream this morning and they're like, Neal, I really want to do a video series documenting my journey into cybersecurity with pros and cons, but I feel like there's so many creators out there, what do I do? And I was like, look, I won't be able to articulate it as well as I did this morning, but what I basically was like, you have something that I don't have, right? You're either in a particular financial situation, you're either in a particular job situation, you're in a particular demographic, you're in a particular place in your life or career that I'm not at. And so by you documenting your journey, you literally are giving somebody who is in the same financial situation as you, the same demographic as you, the same career part of the world as you, right? What you're giving somebody who has some quality that you have, a potential roadmap to help them succeed. And so I try to encourage people to get out of their own way when it comes to creating content, because everybody in this industry has, you talked about it at the beginning, right? My way in was different than your way in, is probably different than Eric's way in. And one of the big things that I try to get people to do is to get out of their own way in falling into the social trap that there's only one way in cybersecurity, or there's only one way in IT, or there's only one way to be successful, or there's only one way to be a pen tester, or there's only one way to be a blue teamer. And that's very much what I want people to take away from any of the content that I produce or any of the interactions with me is, you are awesome. Everybody in this industry, the fact that you're here on a Friday night, either broadcasting, it's okay. It's all right. He's here. I got to make him feel good. It's all right. But like, whether you're here broadcasting or whether you're listening to me, whether you're listening to Jack over on Cybersecurity, whether you're listening to this tomorrow, next week, a month from now, whatever the case is, you're committing your time to being awesome in your craft. And therefore you should absolutely put yourself out there and show what you're doing and what you're learning from being awesome in your craft, however that manifests itself, whether it's writing, video content, whatever the case is, because this is one of the only career fields where you get to do awesome stuff, and it doesn't matter how you got there, you're going to do awesome stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the big things. And one of the things I've always encouraged college students and high school students and anybody else to do is commit to showing who you are and what you are capable of. Because whether it be for a job opportunity or whether it just be to put yourself out there and make a name for yourself, look, you got to be honest, and everybody got to be honest with themselves. You got to be able to brand for you. And that brand comes down to what you have put online these days. And if you haven't done anything, or maybe you've done a ton of stuff and just not published it, dude, write a blog, do a YouTube stream, do Twitch, do something to show who you are. Because not only does that set you up to be able to talk to others and work with others, it sets you up in such a way that when you're looking for a career, you can get it because people can find you. Yeah. They know who you are. They know your journey. Instead of hoping that the interview gets your message across, now you have people that have seen you that are getting that message across already.
That's correct. And, as usual, we haven't had any people ask for it, but
there's the dancing granny. We got it. We've had some different people on tonight. It's we always bring in a different crowd. We have some usuals that I'm sure, Eric, you would get messages later on Twitter or what have you that were mad that they didn't get dancing granny.
They don't. Yeah, this is what happens.
But at the end of the day, look, Neal, I gotta say, it's been awesome having you on, and I think there's a lot that people can learn from everybody here.
You see,
Shannon, that's about time. So at the end of the day, I would say this, and it's one of the things I stand by, is you're right. Everybody has their own journey, their own path to cybersecurity. And you can look at Alyssa Miller, who was a barista till she came in, and so many others that, yes, my journey came from IT. That doesn't mean somebody else's journey comes from IT. But as long as you have that drive to continue to learn, because it is a field that is constantly changing, then you're going to succeed.
Yep.
You're going to make a name for yourself. You're going to find your way. And if you don't have that drive to constantly be researching and learning and figuring something out, and I'm not talking at midnight or what have you. I'm talking, during the workday or maybe an hour or 2 hours after work, then okay, keep researching. but you don't have, this doesn't have to be your life. It just has to be a passion
Okay.
or a driver for you to really succeed.
Well, I always say that cybersecurity is a journey. It is
Yes.
a marathon. It is a lifestyle. We all, have to have that mental break like we started, and I want to bookend
Yep.
this with that mental health thing.
Yeah.
But this is a passion project for content creators, for cybersecurity people, for everybody that's in this career field. And one of the things that I always say is each one teach one. It doesn't matter if
Yeah.
you've been in the field for 1 month, 1 year,
Yeah.
20 years, 30 years, like some of us here. You always bring somebody up. You always share your knowledge. There's a lot of things that you learn that other person might not know. So
100%.
teach one.
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's something I've had to learn along the way. So Neil, before we go, please, lasting words before we end the stream.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. I see your tweets come across my feed all the time with all the awesome guests you guys do. You guys are doing great work. I'm super proud that you guys are doing awesome work. Super humbled that you asked me to come on board. Thank you so very much for that. I really do appreciate it. If I can give a small plug, real quick, anybody who is still looking for more cyber content to consume, my good friend Jack Reedy is over on Cyber and Security right now. If you want to use the hashtag CyberWarriorStudios, when you roll over there and say hi to him, he's probably doing some blue team content over there right now. He streams every Friday night on his Tipsy Cyber stream, drinking some bourbon or some old fashioned that he's hanging out with over there. So,
Cheers.
go support Jack. Listen, my saying is always like, whether you're on the red side, whether you're on the blue side, or whether you're still deciding, keep learning. That's very much how I was like, be positive, keep your spirits high. Don't let this industry get you down. Don't compare yourself to other people. Don't compare yourself to people's stupid social media posts about their success versus your back, your behind the scenes stories. Like, you're awesome. Like, I'm a huge Gary Vaynerchuk fan. And he's like, you are 1 in a billion. And so the fact that you're even here and pursuing your dream should give you pause to go be awesome, right? And so, like, just keep doing awesome stuff.
Definitely. Eric, leave us with some ending words.
No, I can't follow that. I can't follow that. Just like I said, each one teach one. Go ahead and share your knowledge. It doesn't matter if you've been here for 1 month, 1 year, 30 years. Do it. Teach somebody. Bring somebody up. And support each other. Be kind to each other, please.
Yep.
What was it? That was
Definitely.
from what was it? The Keanu Reeves movie.
I don't remember which one you're talking about. He's done so
John
many.
Wick.
No, the one that they travel,
It's a great
in
movie.
time. Carajo. Bill and Ted. Bill
Bill
and
and
Ted.
Ted. Yeah.
Be excellent to each other.
Yeah.
So look, I'm gonna leave you all with this. Look, check out CyberWarriorStudios.com for all the ways you can support us. There's a support us link up top. Go ahead, like, comment, subscribe down below. If you're listening to this on podcast, please check out our YouTube channel. There's so much that you missed in terms of interactions and Dancing Granny and everything else. Other than that, it's been an amazing episode. I love you all. Thank you to everybody. We are on the road to 2K on YouTube. So please subscribe, hit that bell, let us know what you think, and comment down below. Other than that, please have a great weekend and practice safe cyber, as my partner in crime, Eric Villardo, always says. Take care and enjoy.